Hello, Revere, and welcome to the Revere Veterans and Community Show. Today I have a real veteran, a military veteran, and a community veteran. He's our former Mayor Dan Rizzo. Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Great to see you, Morris.
Good morning to you, and a pleasure to have you come on our show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, you are now running for state senator.
Yeah. And
I believe you're going to be running for the First Suffolk and Middlesex District.
That's correct.
Would you expand on that for us, please?
Yeah. When Anthony Petroselli called me up back in December, as he did with a lot of other people, to let them know that he would be resigning his seat, I thought that, after some real serious thinking, that this might be a good opportunity for me to jump in and try to take over where Anthony left off. And it's a sizable district. It includes Revere, Winthrop, East Boston, the North End, Chinatown, Beacon Hill, and part of Cambridge. So it's a very diverse, kind of unusual district. I think given my experience that I've had for 16 years here in Revere, 12 years as a councilor and 4 years as mayor, I think I can take a lot of those skills, a lot of that experience, and transfer that over to the legislature, where I know I'd be effective in serving the municipalities that sit within that senatorial district.
Right. Talking about city council, I want to thank you personally because you were the first one that gave me a certificate of appreciation. I don't know if you remember, it was about 13 years ago, and I got it hanging up in my little house.
I do remember it, and those are one of the nicer things you get to do as a city councilor or as mayor, is to show appreciation on behalf of the city for contributions that people make. So it really is, it's one of the nicer things that we get to do.
Right. Now, I have a bunch of questions. Some of them I put on the computer. I couldn't fit them all on because otherwise I'd have a list a mile long. So I wrote some on paper.
Ask away. Ask away.
Right. First, let me say congratulations on winning the city's second budget award last year. What had you done differently to help stabilize the finances of the city? Or what would you have done differently if you could?
Okay, so as mayor, I was extremely proud of the work we did. We doubled the amount of money in our stabilization account, actually more than doubled it. We took the city's bond rating and increased it to the highest level in the city's history. That allowed us to borrow at all-time low interest rates, or the lowest interest rates the city's ever been able to borrow at for capital projects. And we've received, as you just alluded to, for the first time again in the city's history, 2 years out of the 4 years I was mayor, we received the Government Finance Officers Association Award for excellence in budgeting. So I'm very proud of the way we handled our finances here in the city. We were able to get an awful lot of grant money to allow us to do projects like Broadway, the new stadium. We got 80% funding on the new school.
Yep.
I was very, very proud of our efforts in receiving grant money, and that when we get grant money, that's less property tax dollars that we have to ask our residents for. So, we were able to budget effectively and, give the city a nice cushion to be able to look back on. And all of that, you hear people talk about balancing the budget. We're mandated, every city in town is mandated to have a balanced budget. We don't have that luxury like Congress does of just going on and spending money. And I'm not suggesting that they necessarily don't spend it on things that we need, but they have that ability to add to the budget. And we're capped by Proposition 2.5, and everything we do is checked and rechecked and certified by the Department of Revenue. So again, for us to double the amount we had in stabilization, we certified more free cash in 4 years than my predecessor did in 12. So I was very, very proud of our efforts when it came to our city's finances.
Great, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to ask you one question. They're thinking about building a new high school in Revere too, and I guess it started under your administration? Yeah.
So every school building project starts with a statement of interest that you send to the school building authority. And they review it, and then you get into the queue in terms of reimbursement and the whole process to go forward with a new school. Building a new high school is going to require an awful lot of resources from the city. An elementary school that might go for 40 or 50 million in that ballpark, and we're responsible for 20% of that.
Wow.
Is one thing. You look at a new high school, you're looking at probably 3 times that amount. So 20% of 150 million is 30 million, and that's an awful lot. So that would take some real preparation on the city's part to be able to understand when the time comes if we're able to handle that.
Is that the additional 80%? That comes from the state or the
That
federal?
comes from the state.
And the federal government contributes nothing?
The federal government may, I'm not 100% sure, I don't think so, may have some sort of a contribution to the state with respect to school building programs and things like that. I'm not 100% certain, but I know that it's the Mass School Building Authority that gives that money to the cities and towns to build new schools.
Right. I get around pretty good in the city, and being a senior, I go to the seniors and the veterans organization, and a lot of them make great comments on Broadway. And Broadway does really look great. So what are the plans for the other end of Broadway heading toward Brown Circle?
So a month before I left office, actually, strike that. It was October. We received a Mass Works grant for $2.5 million.
Yep.
That's sitting in an account right now. So the new administration right now has that $2.5 million to finish off Broadway. And by the way, when you get a grant, it has to be used for the purpose that it is received. So in other words, if we get a grant, I just can't, or the new mayor can't just say, well, I got the grant for this purpose, but you know what, I'm going to go fill potholes, or I'm going to go do other projects. It has to be used for what the application was submitted for. So the money that's sitting there, the $2.5 million, is going to finish off Broadway, similar to what we did up at this end of Broadway, the south end. And new lighting, new sidewalks, new streets, take that all the way down to Brown Circle. It's going to create a sidewalk from Broadway near the Central Fire Station over to the New Hill School, so kids can more safely travel instead of cutting through the fire department parking lot where the MBTA buses are coming through and all that stuff. So it will create that, and it's going to allow us, and the seniors at the senior center will be happy about this, to resurface the entire municipal parking lot right behind the Citizens Bank building that leads over to the senior center. So that parking lot that's all chopped up and everything is going to get all resurfaced and redone.
You mean the one right down on, what's the name of that street?
Central Ave.
Avenue, right.
Yeah, Central Ave, running
Yep.
between Sprague and Central.
Right.
That parking lot's in tough shape, so we included that in our application, which ultimately was approved. So you'll have a whole new parking lot over there. I'm sure they'll be happy.
Very happy. Okay, my next question to you is, I hope I don't get in trouble for this. Not from you, for these people. I see they just arrested, or previously, 52 members of the violent MS-13 gang in East Boston. They come from South America. You've always talked about prioritizing public safety in Revere. So let us know about that, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been very cognizant of our public safety infrastructure here in the city. I don't think I ever made it any secret that public safety has been my top priority.
Yep.
We can give your kids the best education in the world. I can fill all the potholes that I possibly can. We can take care of the city's finances, but if people don't feel safe in their homes or safe in their neighborhoods, then the quality of life for people is severely diminished. So I put a real high priority on our public safety infrastructure. When I took over, we had 84 police officers in a city that should have about 140. When I left office on January 4th, we had 103. So that's 19 more police officers in just 4 years, and that has led to a 15% reduction in crime, because I asked them 4 years ago to start creating an annual report, and that was through our RevStat program, our performance-based management program that we implemented. So we can validate and document the reduction in crime by 15%. That those violent gang members that were taken off the street, all in East Boston, by the way, or mostly in East Boston, was done in conjunction with a couple members of our gang task force here, and who do such a tremendous job. I'm so proud of our police department and our fire department, by the way.
Right.
You know, this terrible opioid problem, the overdose, you know, the overdose and addiction problems that we're having, not just in Revere, not just in Massachusetts, but across the country.
Right.
I mean, our fire department leads the way. They were the first to carry Narcan on their fire engines. They now have a program that's being modeled. They were actually asked to go to Washington, D.C. to talk about what they're doing here in Revere to help families that are suffering from addiction. So really, we've got the best fire department, the best police department, and I couldn't be more proud of the jobs that they do.
Right. If a mother has a child who is a drug addicted to narcotics, and who can she notify to get help for her son if she wanted to?
Well, you know, we have professionals here. We oversee a program, a grant program that created what's called the Winnisimmet Regional Opioid Collaborative, the ROC. It is Saugus, Chelsea, Winthrop, and Revere that are part of this grant. And Julia Newhall oversees that program, and she works with Kim Hanton of North Shore Mental Health Association, so or North Suffolk, I should say, mental health, and they do tremendous work in helping people get into recovery, get into treatment programs. But they can really, I mean, I know, you know, during our administration, if they were to call our office, we would be able to point them in the right direction. But I mean, if they were at a complete loss, you know, they can call the fire department. Right. The fire department, as I alluded to earlier, is now going to homes and offering support to families and people that
so they can call the fire department?
They can, yeah, absolutely. You know, I hope my friends at the fire department don't get mad at me for saying that, but you know, I mean, like, if they get the call, they're the type of department that, in spite of how busy they are, you know, working in an urban city, they know that this is a priority right now. So I'm sure they would take the time and point families in the right direction. So right. I would suggest either calling the mayor's office at 286-8111 or to go, you know, stop a firefighter and say, look, I have a son, I have a daughter, I have a brother, I have a sister, I have a family member that's suffering from addiction. They need help. Can you point me in the right direction? And I know virtually every single one of those members of our department would help. So,
right. You mentioned the police department before, that you added 13 new police, but Chief Caffarelli just came back from Israel, the Holy Land,
yeah.
and he was there to study their security systems.
Yes.
And he is a terrific police chief, if I may say that. And, can you tell us a little about what they do over there, or if you might know specifically?
So,
like security-wise.
Yeah. So you had said we added 13. We actually added 19 police officers. So I just wanted to correct.
Folks,
yeah. So Chief Caffarelli did go to Israel. There was a
seminar there on that.
Yep. There was training in Homeland Security and. Again, I mean, Chief Caffarelli does a tremendous job. He's a dedicated public servant.
And a Marine veteran.
And a Marine veteran, absolutely.
Thank you, Chief, and I salute you for your service, and so does His Honor the Mayor.
Yep. And what's great is, number one, members of our police department and actually members of our fire department are hired with veterans preference, returning veterans. So we've got a lot of returning veterans now coming out of Iraq and Afghanistan,
right.
coming back and getting the opportunities to serve, continue their service, albeit in a different role. So, but the chief went to Israel. I know Sheriff Tompkins went to Israel.
Right, he's on Facebook, by the way, Sheriff Tompkins, with the beautiful photos.
Yeah, and again, I'm not privy to what they talked about or what they learned over there, but you know, I'm sure they got some real valuable information, you know, and that's the whole key. It's a matter of sharing information. That's something that hasn't been done in the past, but now everybody's talking. You know, the drug unit at one time used to be in a separate building from the police department. Now, when the chief took over, Chief Caffarelli, we pooled everybody together, and so now everybody's sharing information, and not just sharing amongst our own officers, but sharing with the North Shore Gang Task Force, sharing with the FBI, sharing with Boston gang units. So, you know, there's a lot of information sharing, and a lot of that is really what led to the arrest of those 57 violent MS-13 members. So, again, it comes down to quality of life issues, and keeping your family safe and keeping our families safe has to be a priority of ours. I mean, we live in a post 9/11 world now, and unfortunately, terrorism isn't across the ocean anymore.
No,
it's all over the place, and we need to be vigilant. Again, I'm proud of the work that we're doing here in Revere.
You mentioned something that I heard. The Tsarnaev brothers, the Boston bombers, the ones that were there. The neighbors knew what they were doing in the garage, but they wouldn't say anything because they didn't want to cause any problems. But if you see something that's wrong, say something to make it right. That would be the best way to go.
That's excellent advice, Morris. People need to speak up. A lot of people, they have this attitude, I don't want to get involved. And that comes
You can remain anonymous too,
Of course you can remain anonymous. And, we've tried, we tried to re-implement. When I opened up the substation across the street from City Hall, we brought back the Citizens Police Academy. We implemented Coffee with a Cop so that police officers can go and talk to people in a coffee shop somewhere. We want to create an environment, that is conducive for people wanting to talk to a police officer.
Can I say something on that?
Yeah.
You have an officer on the Revere Police Force. His name is Officer Salvati. Salvati?
Jerry Salvati. Yeah.
Excellent police officer, like the Revere's finest. He came on the show to speak about scams for seniors, scams for veterans. He's going to come to our senior center and talk about that. We love the police in Revere, and we want to, as citizens, help them, and we should help them. And when I see on TV all the negativity that's come down from Maryland and from California and from those states, it's a disgrace, Mayor, because it's the police that protect you and me.
It's an absolute disgrace. The public is taking it out. I'll say this. It's not the majority of the public. It's a minority of the public that are looking at the police as the enemy,
Right.
I mean, if they rode around in a cruiser for a week or two with any police officer, they'd see what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. And are there some rogue police officers out there? Are there police officers that do the wrong thing? Of course there are. But there's elected officials that do the wrong thing. There's teachers that do the wrong thing. There's a lot of different groups of people that, you're going to have some bad apples. But,
on Facebook, they had a little, where they have the Facebooks, the sayings, people writing sayings. Yeah. And one gentleman wrote, and you could do 100 beautiful things, but if you do one wrong thing, that's the one they're going to talk about.
I've learned that. I've learned that a lot, unfortunately.
But I'm going to give you a positive one. I have a woman at my senior center, and I told her the mayor was going to be on the show. She says, would you thank him? And I says, I sure will. Eileen Murillo, I'm sure you know Eileen Murillo. Yeah. She wanted to create a monument of the woman's, with the woman's name, one of the first ones in the Commonwealth, to put out on the American Legion lawn. She had to get permission from you, and she says when she went up to you to speak, you were more than 100% willing to help her, and that monument became true. And she even had the General, Major General D. McWilliams, if my memory is correct, come down. Wow. Tell us a little about that, Mayor, because a lot of people would like to hear it.
Well, Eileen Murillo, she's a veteran of World War II, as
right.
you know. And she didn't think that women got their due when it comes to being remembered, people that, had served, and women that had served. And I don't think I was mayor for a month, and she showed up in my parking space out in front of City Hall. She told me about her plan. I offered whatever assistance I could give her. I told her I would be behind her the whole way, and through her efforts and efforts of a lot of other people that jumped on with her to help her, We now have a beautiful monument and dedication to those women who served. So she's an amazing woman to start with.
She put 150 names on there, and she went around and collected each one in the rain, snow, sleet, just like the mailman.
Yeah, no, she's a tremendous asset to our city. It's what makes our city so special. I've always said it. Our people are our greatest strength. We see it time and again when we have to rally together. I mean, during the tornado, for example. I mean, it's something that
I was going to get that.
It's something that we never thought. I never thought we'd ever have to deal with or address. A 4-minute storm that travels 2 miles through our city. It literally cut Revere out. It started at the Chelsea line and ended at the Lynn line. It lasted 4 minutes and damaged 1,500 pieces of property, including 8 public buildings.
Wow. Displaced
dozens of families. But people in Revere rallied together, and it really, in spite of the damage and in spite of the property damage and in spite of the, certainly the massive cleanup effort that was required, it was a proud moment for our city because people did pull together and help one another.
Right. That was one of the problems. The other one was the snowstorm we had. Well, snowstorm. I mean, the Eskimos was coming down here. We had more snow than they did up there.
Well, yeah, we all became Eskimos. I mean, last year it was 9 feet of snow in 45 days,
Right.
And there was just, I mean, it was tough, but again, I'm proud of what we did. I think by and large, if people reflect back, and now that the frustration is gone, I mean, I look back and I say, our contractors and our DPW did a great job, and, under the circumstances, absolutely did a great job keeping our streets open, particularly when you compare them to other cities and towns. Take Somerville, for example. Somerville spent $12 million on snow removal, and geographically, they're not that much bigger than Revere. $12 million. We spent under $2 million. And, I would argue that our streets were every bit as good certainly as surrounding cities around here. But the biggest problem for us last year, Morris, was getting equipment, because all the heavy equipment that we desperately needed was going to Boston. It was going to the MBTA.
Right, or the airport.
It was going to the state. We struggled. I mean, I had to get crews out of New Jersey, out of Buffalo, out of Syracuse to come down. And, of course, we paid for it, but if we didn't have that heavy equipment, we wouldn't have been able to keep up with the snow that was falling. It was getting 2 feet every weekend.
Right. You're also a Navy veteran.
Yeah.
Tell us just about a minute or two on your service.
I look back on my service to the country by spending my 6 years in the Navy, 4.5 years on an aircraft carrier, the USS Independence, CV-62. 80 warplanes on there, and I think about it now, as a middle-aged guy, and looking back to being a young guy, and it's really remarkable. And they're out there now. There's people out there right now serving our country on board these carriers or overseas, as Marines or Army, Air Force, and certainly our Navy. These men and women are out there serving us now, and a lot of them are 18, 19, 20 years old.
I was 17 myself when I went into the service.
Exactly. So, but I look at an 18, 19, 17-year-old kid today, and I'm like, my God, they're going into harm's way like that.
I know.
But it's what makes our country great and makes our country strong. And this show that you do, Morris, specifically for veterans, I think is so critical. It's critical for young people today to understand how our country got here, 240 years later, or 235, 240 years later, how we got here. It's, Ronald Reagan said peace through strength.
Right.
And, it's never been validated more, I think, than it is today, because people out there, you look at ISIS or ISIL, and they talk about, how much hatred they have specifically for the United States. We always need to be on guard. It's just a sad reality. You wish you didn't need a military. You wish you didn't need a police force, but we do.
Right. Democracy is not free, really. It isn't, because you got to protect it.
A lot of
But-
lives have been lost.
Right. And the reason for that is most of the countries are jealous of us. And that is the reason they're out there. You have people talk about Muslims and all that. They shouldn't, because it's the radicals of that group that are causing the problems. There's 1.5 billion of them, and I'm sure 99.9% of them are the finest people you could find. We have them right here in Revere. We have people that come from Egypt, people that come from Saudi Arabia, and look what they do for us in the city. They make it beautiful for us. They do restaurants, they do stations, they do a lot of good things for us.
Yeah, I mean, there's, unfortunately, I mean, I think about what it might be like to be just a hardworking Muslim family right now under the cloud they're under, because, the problem is, a lot of these Muslim-based countries are really who are adversaries of the United States. And so I think it's hard for a lot of people to look at somebody of the Muslim faith and say, oh, well, they must, to not think that they might, be up to something that's no good. But I mean, my experience anyway has been in working with a lot of people. I mean, we have a lot of Moroccans here, like you said,
yep.
a lot of Egyptians here, a lot of that just want a better life. The reason why
That's
we
why they
all
came here.
the reason why we came here, I always say people aren't coming here, as much as we come from, European countries, right?
My father comes from Germany. My mother comes from Russia. I'm sure yours comes from Italy.
Right. Well, my mother's Irish, so she came, so like her family came from Ireland. Nobody's coming here anymore from Ireland or Italy or Spain or Poland. I mean, they're not coming here from those countries anymore. They're coming here from South America,
Right.
Central America. They're coming here from a lot of
As long as they come here legally, I love them.
Middle Eastern countries.
Right.
They come here. We have the best universities here. We've got the best hospitals here. So people gravitate here. I mean, I suppose if I lived in a third world country or a country that didn't have what we have here, I would aspire to go to the United States. So you can't blame people for wanting to come here. I mean, of course, illegal immigration is a whole nother issue. We need to get our head around knowing who's here in our country.
Definitely.
And we need to have a clearer path for people to get here. I've heard that people have to wait 10, 12, 14 years on a list to come here. Well, if you live in a country where, life isn't so good, you might not want to wait 14 years, right? So there's got to be a little better system in place, and Congress is just talking and talking and talking, but, nothing seems to be
Well,
happening.
Mr. Mayor, we've run out of time.
Okay.
So I want to thank you, sir, for coming on and spending a half an hour with us.
Oh, it's
God
been my
bless you, and
pleasure.
I wish you success on your endeavor, whatever you do.
Well, the election is April 12th,
12th,
so I hope that people would get out and vote on April 12th. It's a special election, so it's been an honor to serve the people of Revere for the last 16 years, and I'm really hopeful that they want to come out on April 12th and elect a senator that knows Revere issues, that can relate to Revere issues, and that will represent their families in the Senate with the same dedication and work ethic that I've had during these last 16
Right.
years.
And let me thank you again for your service, sir. I want to thank all the people out there in the city of Revere for listening. God bless our troops, but most of all, God bless our great country, the United States of America, and thank you for listening. And thank you for letting me have great guests like Mayor Dan Rizzo on here.
Thank you, sir.